Urban View. We got some things to talk about. Hi, YouTube. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show. We are here on Urban View, channel 126 on SiriusXM, and we have a lot to get into this morning. We've already done our initial morning segment for those of you joining us on YouTube. And if you are, please hit the like and subscribe button. I want to talk a little bit today about what's happening internationally. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of the Financial Times and international newspapers, and so much so that after the election, I began ordering print edition of the newspapers, mainly because my spirit couldn't take it. My spirit could not take all the things that were happening, and it was like I would go online to try to read the news, and then like the news would lead me to all these other things that were really kind of problematic and troublesome. And so it was difficult for me, and I'm a news junkie, right? I consume the news. It's ridiculous a little bit. And so I began ordering print editions. Shout out to Financial Times, got my print edition here. And one of the things, when I first started doing this, my daughter comes downstairs and she's like, "Ooh, vintage." And as I've told the audience before, when she said vintage, I thought she was talking about the fact that the Financial Times, the paper is kind of pinkish. And I was like, "No, they always print on that color paper." She was like, "No, you're reading a newspaper." And I was like, "You're 11. What do you know about vintage?" But it was sort of speaking to a shift that I was experiencing with the need to really tap more into what's happening internationally, with the need to tap more into media outlets that were not simply based in New York. And so I wanted to talk about what's happening in China, really what's happening all around the world right now as a result of some of the moves that China has made. And I want to have this conversation because this has real implications for Black people. I know you're like, what? Trust me, it's got implications for Black people. So, a few weeks ago, not even a full few weeks ago, there was an announcement that there was going to be like a $500 billion investment in AI. They were going to be expanding AI. OpenAI is the nonprofit organization that was created that sort of generated all the AI explosions that we've seen in terms of generated AI and the capacity for Chat GPT and all these other things that are taking place. And so I've been watching AI. I'm kind of like, oh, this is amazing. Like the first time I used it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I'm troubled by it also because we know that AI generated searches require so much more energy because they give off so much more heat. That means that they require so much more water. It's really harmful for the environment. So I've been kind of watching AI like, man, it is hella dope that you could write this whole report for me in like 5 seconds, but I'm a little leery about it because I believe in like having clean water and clean air to breathe. And so, it's been a little troublesome. But this $500 billion investment that was going to be made in expanding data centers, a 500 billion with the B, $500 billion investment that was going to really take what we currently have experienced with AI, which has been largely led by companies in the West, and explode it, right? So it was a huge shock to me because again, I'm not an expert in this. I just happened to read the papers, and it was a huge shock to me when we started hearing news last week about this new company, or I guess a company that's new to people like myself who are sort of on the periphery, called DeepSeek, DeepSeek, DeepSeek. And DeepSeek is a Chinese-based company that basically had to start from nothing. Started from the bottom, now we're here. And I'm going to explain to you why. Ooh, YouTube, I don't even know if y'all can hear me because my screen is down. I'm going to turn it up a little bit, make sure y'all can actually hear it. Sorry. So basically, China is because they've been sanctioned, and because there's this sort of this trade war between the United States and China. And I shouldn't really even call it a trade war because I think that's a phrase that might mean something. There are trade disputes between the United States and America. I'm also that, but between the United States and China. That's what I meant to say, between the United States and China. And there have been these trade disputes such that China has been limited in their ability to get access to a lot of the most advanced American technology because of the sanctions and because of the way in which America has sort of tried to minimize their ability to take advantage of American technology and use it to expand in their own spaces. Now, those of you who, after the TikTok ban, you got on Red Note, you've already seen what China has to offer because you've seen their cities. You've seen that China is living in like 2055. Meanwhile, we barely scraping 20. Well, here in America, we back in 1935, but China is like in 2055 when it comes to their technology, their public transportation, their access to information. And so one of the challenges that China has faced is that when they are trying to expand technology, they don't get to use the same data sets and information that we have here because they have been largely blocked because of the relationship of vis-a-vis trade between this country and China. So they didn't have access to the best and brightest materials, meaning they didn't have access to all of the data sets and the programming and the language capacities that the AI models that our companies rely on, I shouldn't say that American companies rely on. They didn't have that, right? And so last week, I was like, what is all this kerfluffle about DeepSeek? And then this morning, those of you who pay attention to the stock market, you saw that tech stocks were like, down in the toilet. Like, I mean, not that bad, but bad, right? So we learned last week that China has this AI lab that has basically come in at like pennies on the dollar. So whereas the United States and other companies, they've got they've raised and spent $6 billion on AI. They have this $500 billion investment that they're about to make. China was like, oh yeah, not only are you going to lock us out of participating in the industry, and you're going to lock us out of the materials that we need, and you're going to overspend all this money, and you're going to commit to raising $500 billion to expand this industry. And let me stick a pin right here. If you've been paying attention to the tech bros have been very, very upset at each other because of this Stargate? Yes, sorry, I have to get my other edition of the paper. Stargate, which is this whole project that Donald Trump and everybody's excited about, and they were going to raise all this money. And some of them was like, well, I got $80 billion I can give. And others were like, well, I got $100 billion I can give. And then Elon Musk was like, ain't nobody got any of this money. It's all a scam. Stargate's not even going to do all the things that the Americans say it's going to do. And to which people are like, wait a minute, Elon, whose side are you on? The tech bros have been fighting. The girls are fighting. Okay. And so when all that's happening in the background, then we learned that DeepSeek, which is this Chinese company that, again, did not have the resources, did not have the money, did not have the data materials, did not have the AI technology, did not have any of the things that all of these other European nations had. This is what China did. They was like, oh, you gonna block us out of all the things? All right, I got you. Why? Watch this. Watch this. According to the Financial Times, a small Chinese artificial lab stunned the world this week by revealing the technical recipe for its cutting-edge model, turning its reclusive leader into a national hero who has defied U.S. attempts to stop China's high-tech ambitions. Y'all, they ain't had no money. They ain't had no resources. Not to say that China is poor, but this particular company and this particular effort was really something that Americans in the West were really excited about, because they had essentially shoved China to the back of the bus. There's a message here for Black people. Pay attention. All right. So they go on to talk about the fact that last month, San Francisco-based OpenAI released its full version of the model, but kept its method secret. So that's the other thing that's been a challenge, is that as much as they talk about OpenAI being open, it's really quite secretive, and you have to have a lot of money to get access to it. And again, keep in mind, the idea was keep China from getting access to this information and the data. In 2021, this Chinese company, led by a brother by the name of Liang, he starts buying up thousands of these old models. So you know how, like in Back to the Future, for those of you who are Gen X, how Marty, when he's trying to get the DeLorean, and when him and the professor are trying to get the DeLorean to go into the future, they got to use all these old car parts, right? All these old parts that should not have ever even been put together, but they put them together in such a way that they were able to jimmy rig themselves into the future, into the past, and everywhere else they needed to be. Right. That's kind of what China did. They was like, oh, you gonna keep all the materials? No problem. Ain't no problem. It ain't no problem. Keep your materials. Oh, you gonna keep all the money? Ain't no problem. Keep all the money. Y'all, they did not even allow for the team that they assembled in China at this company, DeepSeek. None of the people who were a part of the team were even educated outside of China. They was like, bet, because here's what's going to happen. Y'all trying to block us from doing the things we need to be free. We're not going to rely on you for nothing. There's a message here for Black people. All of the people who are part of this team for this company, DeepSeek, all trained only in China. Not near one of them been trained in the West, which is huge. When you understand international affairs and international education and the systems that take brilliant people out of their home countries, bring them to this country, give them an H-1B visa, which is also an issue right now. But basically, China was like, take everything. Take your money, take your materials, take your resources, block us out of everything. We got you. It's all right. It ain't no problem. It ain't no problem. Message for Black people. Now, what has happened is DeepSeek basically released an AI platform that costs pennies on the dollar. And I mean fractions upon fractions upon fractions of pennies on the dollar, as compared to the European and Western models, the American models. And they were basically able to do it better than the Americans and the West. They did it cheaper. They did it all in their own strength. And they now have basically disrupted the entire artificial intelligence industry, because having been locked out, having been pushed to the side, having been pushed to the back of the bus, having only to rely on their own resources and gift, skills, and talents, they were able to say, who gonna check us, boo? We got you. Let's continue to read. Now, they had been banned from getting access to these materials based on Washington policies. And everyone who is now realizing that they did not need to be included in order to do this thing. Now people are looking at America and the West was like, well, wait a minute. Why are we giving you hundreds of billions of dollars? Why are we following after you when they just prove that they can be better than you with less resources, less time? Less time is the other thing. OpenAI been around for years. This company got started 2 years ago. And they were able to say, I see what you have done, Westerners, and I'm going to raise you Chinese excellence. There is a message here for Black people. Some of the things that they've talked about in this company, they say that DeepSeek is run like the early days of the DeepMind. It's focused purely on research and engineering. They said, we're not going to deal with all this American foolishness. We're not going to deal with all this European foolishness. We're going to do what we do best, and that's research and engineer. And they doubled and trickled down. They refuse to take talent from outside. They refuse to take resources from outside, from other countries that were willing to consider it. And they were like, no, we got this. We got this. Why is this important for our community? It's important for our community because with just a fraction of the resources, with a fraction of the time, with a fraction of the potentiality, this international debacle has been able to demonstrate what we can accomplish. And the we is elusive here. So put yourself in where you fit in on this particular example. But when we as a people who have been discounted, thrust to the side, pushed to the back of the bus, are told, we don't want you here, we don't like you, we don't think you're smart, we don't even think you're actually fully human. When that's what's happening, we Black people have two options. One, we either attempt to continue to squeeze and manipulate and contort and twist and discombobulate our bodies so that we can fit into the teeny tiny little bitty boxes that white nationalists would allow us to occupy just so that we can have a chance to breathe. Or we can do the very important, serious work of reclaiming our minds, curing from our internalized white supremacy, and realizing that we too have the capacity to put ourselves on a platform and in a footing that says, who's going to check us, boo? Right now, we are seeing white nationalists across the country are recruiting. Many of you may have been in communities where over this weekend you've gotten flyers. In some communities, they put the flyers in plastic bags and then put a little bit of rock in it so that the flyer wouldn't blow away, because white nationalists are being really intentional right now, the same way that their Ku Klux Klan ancestors were. And they're offering for $1, you can get membership into their organization. They are intentional. Who gonna check them? Boo. We've got right now Moms for Liberty gearing up again, because now that they are about to take the Department of Education, with Linda, I'm completely unqualified McMahon being in charge of the Department of Education, they're very excited about the ability to completely eliminate any learning or education about Black people. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow when we get into our segment about what it means when Black children embrace white supremacist ideologies, similar to the young Black boy who engaged in a mass shooting at his school because he hated being Black so much. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But when we're talking about people who are able to recruit, people who are intentional, they've got plans, they've got meetings, they've got dates, they've got committees, they have intentionality. And a lot of us are figuring out how we're going to boycott Target and still support Tabitha Brown. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? And I'm saying it that way. We're going to talk about the boycott and Tabitha Brown on Thursday. We're going to talk about FUBU February. We're going to talk about it later this week. But the reality is some people are playing not 4D, some people are playing chess in other dimensions. And we're still trying to figure out how to make the old example of integration still work. A lot of folks are talking about boycotting, and we're going to talk about that on Thursday. So just stick a pin. We're going to get to some of those issues then. But what we have to ask ourselves now in this moment, as we celebrate Nia, today is the Nia principle of Kwanzaa, purpose to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our people in order to restore our people and our community to their traditional greatness. That is supposed to be what we are called to do. And the question we get to now ask ourselves is, how are we preparing to do that? They are getting ready to cancel Black History Month. Just know it's coming. Just know that the government is not going to celebrate Black History Month. They will probably rescind Martin Luther King Jr. Day. They're probably going to get rid of Juneteenth. And that actually is fine. Because the reality is, when Dr. Carter G. Woodson created Negro History Week, which then expanded to Black History Month, the intention was never for the American government to be wholesale participants in the celebration of the brilliance and the genius that is Black people. That wasn't the point. The point of Black History Month was for us to figure out how to, well, actually, there were multiple parts to Black History Month. Number one, or Black History Week, when Carter G. Woodson first created it. First things first, Negro History Week wasn't supposed to be the week that we crammed in all the information about Black people. Right? That wasn't supposed to be what's happening. Black History Month isn't supposed to be the month that we cram in all the history about Black people. Black History Month, Negro History Week, its predecessor, was an opportunity that, as Carter G. Woodson and those who helped create this moment were intending, it was an opportunity for us to spend the entire year learning about ourselves, making sure that the curriculum our children, our elders, our young people were learning and were exposed to was going to, for the entire year, center us. So when we're learning math lessons, we're learning math lessons from Black mathematicians. When we're learning science lessons, we're learning science lessons through Black scientists. When we're learning linguistics, we're learning linguistics from Black linguistics. Linguisticians? Linguistic? I don't know what the word is for people who specialize in linguistics. Linguists, Black linguists. Thank you. I knew it was going to come to me eventually. When we're studying medicine, we weren't just going to study the Miriam Sims, who was a slaver who experimented on Black women, and we now consider him the father of gynecology in white supremacist medical circles. We were supposed to be learning about medicinals from Black people with Black excellence. And so the idea of the government or Target, which has decided that it's going to embrace segregation, because they don't want any more DEI. So they are now pro-segregationists, and they have made that decision. Black History Month was never about those entities being a part of celebrating Blackness. It was about us celebrating ourselves. And this year, we get to show and prove. This example coming out of China has been paradigm shifting for me in many ways, because it is a reminder that when the people who have the power, and I'm putting that in air quotes, when they declare you out, when they count you out, when they say we have no use for you, your options are to either believe that that is true, that there is no use for you, or to get busy proving it not to them, but to yourself, to ourselves. And this is a beautiful example of disruption, because the world does not know what to do with it. Stocks right now still going all over the place because they're not quite clear what this means. And then the Chinese was like, and who gonna check us, boo? We gonna make all of it open. Here, it's open secrets, it's open AI. We are actually going to reveal to you everything that we did, because we're so good at what we do. It don't matter if you try to mimic it. We're gonna give it to you for free. That's how confident we are in ourselves. And that's what you can do when you are a part of a culture that's planning not just for this moment, not how to just navigate through one proposed Black History Month boycott, but when your society is thinking 7 generations into the future, you can do this sort of work. And that's what I'm excited about, because it's a model for us to remember, right? Because we, as the grandparents of the world, the ancient ones of this planet, sometimes need to see our ancestral children accomplish things that they could only have done through learning from our excellence, to remind us of just how amazing we are. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. We got a lot we're going to unpack this week, and I want to make sure that we are clear about, if nothing else, we have to be mindful of the fact that we've got us, and with our intentionality and our commitment to doing the work, we can make sure that there is nothing that we cannot accomplish together. And I just need us to know that it's about to get real out there. The pressure is coming. The layoff notices are coming. Them people who you knew didn't want you there for 50, 11 years, your entire time of working there, they about to let you know you ain't come. It's all coming. Let it come. Because like Phil Wright said in that example that we heard in the moment of gratitude, the failures have to come so that the dreams can be manifested. Sometimes you're going to miss out on the wish so that you can make the dream actually come to life. We got a lot to get to. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. YouTube, thank you so much. We appreciate y'all. Hit the like and subscribe button. I got to get back to Urban View now, because we got some things we got to talk about. Pay attention to the news and order you some print news, people, news media. It's amazing how much information the rest of the world is discussing that we have yet to get to. And we didn't even talk about Colombia and China and the trade. Child, it's so much. It's so much. Bye, YouTube. Appreciate y'all. 866-801-8255,